anyone would do that in the first place, nor how they're going to dig themselves out of that hole.
Quite a hole. Quite a hole. Let's talk about a different hole. Let's talk about the show.
It's probably good we do.
215. Now, we're live. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in this week. I really hope we have a good turnout this week because we have humongous news. Yes. We were just talking about it. We're working out details. We're talking about it. We're refining our thoughts, and it's going to be freaking fantastic. So before we get to that, we have a lot of show to talk about. Today we're talking about home studio, episode 215. That's a landmark show, don't you think, guys?
I think so.
So before we get into what we're talking about, let's say hello to our co-hosts. Michael, good day to you, sir.
Good day.
How are you doing?
Pretty good.
Good to hear.
I had an interesting week. My newest model that I've been working with did a bunch of shoots with her. She entered a modeling competition earlier. About 90% of her portfolio was my photos.
Right on.
Fantastic. And how'd she do?
She got second place, apparently, for the commercial acting part of the competition. So not for the parts that I helped with, but it looks like she's gotten quite a bit of attention, getting more shoots out of it, and she's been very active lately. So fantastic. I'm hoping I had something to do with that.
Well, congratulations to both of you. That's really cool. Patrick, how are you? Patrick, everybody, this is Patrick. You're going to see Patrick a lot more in the coming future of our show and so on and so forth. So how are you, man? What are you up to?
Thanks for having me again. But I've been shooting some videos and stuff with my buddies in Hamilton actually, like last weekend, and we did a little vlog sort of thing after talking about the whole vlogging situation. I wanted to see how that would work, and I really enjoyed it. So I started trying to edit a video for you as well for the wrestling thing, and it didn't really end up the way I wanted it to, and my computer crashed. So
and yeah, your computer crashed and lost everything. So yeah, well, you know, that kind of stuff happens. So anyway, that's okay. You're trying new things. You're venturing out. You're doing your vlog. That's awesome. Hamilton's beautiful. The waterfalls. Did you do all the waterfalls?
Yeah, I went to was it Devil's Punch Bowl, and that was a really cool place and stuff. So
cool. Can't wait to see how that turned out.
Yeah,
sweet. Phil,
hello there.
How you doing?
I'm good.
Cool. So anything new? Any big news? Anything you'd like to just quickly talk about?
Nothing crazy yet. Actually, tonight's show I think is on point because I think we're looking at moving soon, and so I kind of want to try and set up a studio in the house because, to be honest, it's a bit of a drive for me to get to Newmarket to use the loft. So if I can have one a little closer, that would be ideal. Yeah,
for sure. I get that. And you mentioned the loft. So about a year ago, actually, May 1st was our exact 1 year grand opening anniversary for the Loft Studio in Newmarket. And I am super excited that it is turning into what it is. We've done so many cool events there. We've done the mental health awareness. We've done the Sick Kids Hospital thing. To me, that's the best part about having a professional studio is that you can actually use it to raise funds for really important things. That's made me extremely proud. So I don't know if you could do that in a home studio. Of course you can. Why not? But the things you have to think about are pretty serious. So we're going to get to that in just a second. What?
I said I think so.
Yeah. Why not?
It'll be really thorough and flesh out ideas first.
For sure. Absolutely.
Go painting walls.
Yeah. Well, actually, we were just having that conversation at the studio. Do we do a gray wall? Do we do a white wall? That's probably something we should put in the show notes because in hindsight, repainting your entire studio may or may not help things. Mm-hmm. So we'll talk about that. Ivan, hello to you, and hello, Taylor. Both of you are watching right now. Thank you very much for commenting in the YouTube page. And for anybody else who's watching right now, please feel free, chat to us. Let us know what you're up to. Let us know what you're thinking. When you hear the big news, I want to see chats. I want to see people saying all kinds of crazy stuff, what you think of the idea, because we're excited, so I hope everybody is. Andrew's watching. Good evening to you, sir. All right, so let's get into this, guys. We have to first thank our sponsors, of course, because they're awesome. LensPen, Cotton Carrier, Sennheiser, Sigma, Atmosphere Aerosol. Patrick, you were just asking me about Atmosphere Aerosol.
Yeah.
So what would you use that stuff for?
I don't know. I think like it would be cool to exploit, use it to explore, like kind of set the scene for videos and stuff. But I haven't really, taken pictures with it before, so it'd be cool to see what I can do with that.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, there you go. Michael was showing it. Can you show that again? Atmosphere aerosol, sweet. It was all Michael's idea for us to talk to Atmosphere, and they were super responsive. So that's really cool.
I recommend not confusing it for hairspray or else it happens.
Well, it is made up of butane, propane, and mineral oil. So apparently it's non-toxic, but that doesn't sound non-toxic to me. I'm just saying.
It will set off a smoke alarm.
Yeah. All right, so let's get into the meat and potatoes of the show. We're going to breeze through some of this stuff because we got a lot to talk about, and we're going to keep this show 1 hour tonight. So if anybody's watching, please comment to us. If you are watching our show, like it. Click the little like button at the bottom. That'd be really cool if you did that. Share it with some people. Let some other people know that we're talking about building a home studio. And I would love to say subscribe to our YouTube channel, but I'm not going to. So let's move along. There's a time and place for things, and there's big news to come. All right, so first of all, home studio. Guys, it's a liberating thing, isn't it? Phil, you were talking about not having to drive all the way to the loft studio. I mean, you live in Pickering. Mm-hmm. The studio is in Newmarket. That's a pain in the tuchus.
It's a little bit of a pain. It has a couple advantages. You know, all the lights are there. Everything I need's there. I don't have to buy any of it. It's got good food around it. But at the same time, I got to drive an hour, and I have to find whoever I'm shooting to also drive an hour. So it can be, assuming I'm shooting someone from my area, anyone farther east, and it's a bit of a different story. So
and still, you shoot until 9, 10 o'clock at night, and then it takes you an hour to get home. Exactly. And you're falling asleep at the wheel. It's not safe. It's not safe for you.
But if you live closer, you can always rent a loft studio. But if you're a little further away,
you should rent the loft studio. I'm just saying you should, because it's available. But anyway, that's not what we're talking about. It can be a completely liberating thing having a studio in your living room or in a separate bedroom, or as our friend Peter McKinnon does, he's got an entire room with a closet that he's turned into another little studio room that he leaves as a dedicated space to do vlogs and things like that. Now, he's not doing portrait photography. He's shooting a vlog. So that's what we got to start with. What are you using your studio for? Michael, what would you use your studio for?
I'm doing most of my work is headshots. So I'm doing some fashion photos, doing a lot of portraiture. Every once in a while I throw in a product shot, but everything is dedicated to portraits when it comes to working at home for me.
And Patrick, what about you?
I don't know. I think I'm more of a video person, so I think it'd be a good, a place where I can call myself home. When I shoot different things, it's like a familiar setting for people, and I think that's what I use it for. I sort of have one right now, and it's like my bedroom. But I mean, it's a two-way thing where I use it for I sleep there, and then it's kind of weird, but I don't know.
And that's part of a problem too. When you have your own home studio, is it in a room you're using for something else already, or is it a completely separate dedicated room? And if it is something you're using for other things and you're tearing stuff down, you're setting it back up again, it can be a real pain in the butt. And if you live at home, then I don't think your parents would enjoy it. And that's a whole different issue. Phil, what would you use a studio for?
I would probably use for the the normal kind of portrait stuff, maybe some studio style boudoir and probably product. But you got a point with what you're using your studio for, because that comes back to how much room do you need? Doing something simple like headshots, I could do that in this room. It's hard to tell with the screen and the camera and whatnot, but it's not a big room. Once you get a backdrop and some lights in here. But if you're doing headshots or you're doing small products, you can set that up almost anywhere. But if you're doing larger stuff, well, you gotta be a little bit more cognizant of space.
For sure. Like if you're shooting vehicles, cars, motorcycles. We did one of our shoots. Phil, you were there for that one when we had the motorcycle.
Yes. Yeah, it was the Nexter. Yeah.
Having a big space where you can just drive the bike in is something that you have to think about ahead of time. You can't drive that into your living room. It's not going to happen.
No, you could, but certain people in your house might not like it.
Yeah, definitely. So these are things you got to think about. For me, I would use the studio for, hanging out with Dixie, my cat.
There you go.
No, I mean, I do a lot of my Daytripper photo sessions. So for me, all I need is a desk, a couple chairs, and a good place to sit and talk. And that's really what I use it for mostly. And of course, I use it for my day trips where I have 10, 15 people in there, and we do portraiture, we do all kinds of things. So now I've learned a lot. And Phil, you hit the nail on the head when you talked about space. There's a lot of stuff that goes in a professional studio, a lot of stuff. Andrew Andrew says, how do you get a Harley up the stairs to the loft? You don't. It's not going to happen.
In fact, getting it down is easier.
Yeah, and even think about this: like, what if you have a wheelchair person, a person who's handicapped, and they can't walk up the stairs? We have 45 steps up to the loft, and it's a 140-year-old building, and you can't add an elevator. So, this is one of the downsides to having a studio at the top, which we embraced by calling it the loft.
Mm-hmm.
You turn a negative into a positive, and that worked out well for us. But there is one client who wanted to rent our studio, and he asked us ahead of time, do you have wheelchair access? And then we were like, unfortunately, no, sorry. And that's a bit of a bummer. So whether it's a motorcycle up to your studio or just a person who needs to have special access, these are things you got to think about.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what about the gear? Because there's a lot of gear. It's not cheap. I mean, building a studio can be an enormous stressor. Anybody who has a wife or a family or anybody, the minute you start talking about spending $1,500 on a new set of Bowen's lights, this is the whole conversation that most of us don't want to have. So if you can justify it by the income, by the work you're doing, that's part of business. But if you're just building up a studio without clients, where do you start? What do you do?
And that can be challenging because once you get the room selected and you get the size you need, you got to figure out what you're filling it with. And I would say that with newer cameras, more modern technology, the last couple of years, the challenge of having studio-like quality pictures has actually become a little bit better. Mm-hmm. Things like the Nikon creative lighting system and the Canon, we didn't add it to the 5D for some reason, lighting system.
Well, Canon, the 5D doesn't have a pop-up flash.
Yeah,
so
it has no trigger system.
Yeah.
Despite them being able to put a radio transmitter in it. But that's a different conversation. You can get really good studio-like lighting out of flashes. But you can also get awesome lighting out of studio lights.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to studio lights, you could get different lights like Opus lights that may bring your house down. Alien Bees, Bowen's lights. You could get into some Einsteins. What's the one that you like, Michael?
Godox.
That's the one. Godox. Like for as many camera brands, there's 10 times as many lighting companies.
That's right. But they're not small.
No.
Okay, so since the last time we did our show on studio lighting, we have done shows on studio lighting on the cheap. We've done, a bunch of stuff on studio stuff. But this is the first time that we've done one when I already have a studio. And I'm seeing every little thing. Like, it's ridiculous. I mean, I've got Gabriel Navi, Joseph Leduc, Robert Schindelheim, and myself. We have 5 people who use this space, and each of us shoot differently. And, some of us came in with our own gear, so we were okay. We didn't have to go and spend tons and tons of money. But now we're at the point where, what if the Einsteins break? Or what if they have to be, go somewhere else or whatever? We need light. We're going to need lights. So now we got to buy more lights. But from lightings to triggers to backdrops and all the accessories, it's just the way you have to do business. Oh, and then there's the business end.
Yes.
Website, internet, booking platforms, promotions, all kinds of other activities that we need to do every day to make sure that the name, the Loft Studio, is out there in a positive way. So there's space, there's business, there's all these other things that you have to think about. So again, go right back to the beginning. What are you using your studio for? It's very much like photography, though, isn't it? I'm about to make a picture. What picture am I trying to make? These are the settings I have to choose, right? If you're building a studio, what pictures am I trying to make? This is the equipment that I need to do it with. Who here has, in our group, in our 4 people that we have right here, who here has a studio lighting and an Octabox?
I know where I can borrow one.
Michael, you have one. How big is that thing?
My Octabox that I'm using is 32 inches.
Now, why do you use an Octabox?
It's just a really good light source. It's a really good... the way that I set up my lighting kit is to be just as versatile indoors as it is outdoors. The lights that I've purchased were meant to be used battery powered. Octabox is really good, just solid option for single point lighting. It's a solid option for a lot of different lighting styles. And when you bring it outside, it's a really good option for replicating the sort of round lighting that you'd get from the sun or the moon or any other lights that you'd see outside. where normally indoors you'd want to use rectangular softboxes to replicate windows.
Okay, but they're huge, right?
Yeah.
They're huge, and that's a problem. Andrew actually makes a joke. He says, you justify the cost by saying, what, these old things? I've had these for years. And he also says, even if you're using speed lights, the modifiers still take up space.
Absolutely.
Now, okay, so you say you have a 32-inch softbox, and a 32-inch softbox is about that big around?
Yeah, pretty
Give or take?
pretty big.
But that's just
The
width.
field of view of this webcam.
And then depth is another
Huge.
big issue, right? And then they have to be on the
Unfortunately, huge.
stand.
Now, and here's the worst part of it is that most of the time that anyone's using a light source, it's going to be above the subject.
Yes.
And when I'm using if I'm specifically using my Octabox inside, choosing that over any of the other modifiers that I have, it's usually for clamshell lighting, so it's directly above my subject, and I've got low ceilings.
So your subject has to crouch?
Yeah, I don't have the luxury of bringing my light higher. I have to bring my subject lower. So they're usually either sitting on a very small stool or sitting on their knees.
So there's another thing to think about. If you're building a studio in your home, most homes have, what, 9-foot ceilings?
8-9 foot ceilings.
My studio has 18-foot ceilings. And not to say, hey, everybody should have 18-foot ceilings, but there's a limitation. And if you don't want that limitation, you have to plan ahead. So interesting stuff. What other things take up a lot of space in the studio, Phil?
Objects. I know that sounds very general, but
Yeah, objects, things.
Your models to interact with. Chairs, Apple boxes, which has been a trend on Google Plus recently. Stools, things that they're going to interact with, props, anything that you're going to have with, for your model to work with. So it can be difficult to, store, 3 different size boxes and 4 chairs and, 2 stools in one room. You're going to look like a hoarder.
Mm-hmm. And even in the space that we have, our studio is about 25 by 20, 18-foot ceilings. We've got an office in the front. We've got a bathroom. And even there, we have trouble finding space for our tables that we need, for the chairs that we have, for all the soft boxes. They end up on a huge shelf that we had to make. We had racks in the studio that were always getting in people's photos. I had my family there for a family portrait session back last August, I think it was.
Okay.
Not that it matters. And I had maybe 14, 15 people, and every photo had stuff in the corners, our stuff that we have on the walls. Now, since then, we've taken those and moved them out, and we've cleaned out the whole space quite a bit. We've gotten more used to the environment, and we're using the space better. But even in a big studio like we have, we're totally running out of space for all the stuff we have.
Yeah. Now, to be fair, in your studio, you do have, 5 people using it, 5 different photographers with 5 different ways of shooting. In a home studio, you're probably going to be a little less cluttered, but not a lot, because a lot of the stuff you have is multi-purpose. You're going to use it. Navi's going to use it. Joe's going to use it. Robert's going to use it. Everyone's going to use, Gabriel is going to use this. I thought I'd add him in so he doesn't think I'm forgetting him.
Otherwise, you wouldn't have mentioned him.
Exactly. Just don't want to feel left out.
But it's true. I mean, I think a good tip for us to give everybody is try and make everything you have in your studio multi-purpose. Mm-hmm. Apple boxes.
Which are an awesome idea. Now, with the idea of an Apple box or a 3-sided box, which sounds funny, is basically a box that can be positioned in 3 different ways to have 3 different heights. So you can stand on it, you can sit on it, you can have someone kneel on it, whatever you want to do, and it's going to change the height. But it's one unit that has more than one purpose.
Right. So, I mean, just so everybody knows what we're talking about, I'll do a screen share here, and I'll show you an Apple box.
Perfect.
Just bear with me here. Okay, so here's an Apple box.
Oh.
I know, I had to go there.
Bum, bum, bum,
bum. No, it's not at all. So this is actually an Apple box.
Yep.
So Apple boxes are little boxes that you can use to stand on. You can use to hold props. You can use for so many different things. And even if you were to look at something like this one, you'll see how they fold in each other.
It actually kind of looks happy.
Little eyes and a mouth. Yeah, it's true. Jen in our community has some of these Apple boxes for sale. I think she built them, and they all fit inside each other. And that's a great way to save space.
Absolutely.
And it's interesting, too, because Apple boxes, there's what is it, the New York, the Chicago, and the LA, and that's just how you position them. So for example, this position is the New York position. Okay. This position is the Chicago position. No, that's the LA position, sorry. Okay. And let's see if they show the Chicago position somewhere. This is kind of the Chicago position on the side.
Okay.
So just weird little things.
Naming.
I know. I don't know. I don't understand where it came from, but it's nice because if you gave somebody this box and you said, hey, take the Apple box, put it in the middle in the New York position, everybody will know that it's going to be the lengthways, right? The New York position like this. So it's a good way that it's terminology used to help people understand how to use these things, how to position them, if you have helpers helping you or so on and so forth. It's just something I watched on a YouTube video, you know. So Apple Box is super handy. We have 9 of them at the studio, and they take up about 2 whole shelves. So yeah, they definitely can take up space. I think these Apple Boxes that we have at the studio were Joe's, and I think they're about 150 years old. I think they were made when the studio was built.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah, well, you know, you gotta use these things, and they do last forever. I mean, these things really do last.
Yeah. You invest in a quality, and that's actually a good thing you're on, because you invest in a quality piece of whatever, and it's gonna last you longer than a cheap version. Now, there are some things that cheap is good, but when it comes down to stuff like studio lights, sometimes cheap isn't the way to go. If you can spend an extra $100, extra $200, which might seem like a lot when you're setting everything up, if it's gonna last you 7 years instead of 1, you've bought it once instead of 7 times.
Yeah, but how do you know which are the good ones? Because every salesperson that you talk to in every single store you talk to is saying this is the best.
It is. It has been one of the best.
It is the best at what it does.
Well, and the joy of actually being in 2017 is we have the ability to rely on, you know, communities, kind of like the Daytripper community, or review sites where you can go on and you can see what other people are using and learn what they're using to see what works for them. And, you know, there are a ton of different options out there. And part of finding what works for other people is also finding what works for you. If you can take a look at something and say, yeah, this makes sense to me, then that's going to go farther than everyone telling you this is the best light to get. But it's so computerized that you have no idea what's happening.
Yeah, like those Einsteins that we have at the studio, they're so digital. There's like power up by like, I think 16th powers and all these buttons and levels. And it's like, what? I have to call Joe every time I need to use them.
And you compare that to something like the Bowens. The Bowens lights, you have a big dial on it. And it's either one big dial that goes more power, less power, or it's 2 dials that go more power and then more power in slightly less increments. Yeah. Like it can be as simple or as complicated as you want it to be. And both those options are awesome lights.
My old boss had to be 10, 20 years old, Allen-Chrome lights. And they were ancient, but they still did the job. And they were exactly as simple as it could possibly be made. It's just the power dial, optical slave, and then you could plug in a pocket wizard if you needed one. And he said there's just no justifying an upgrade because if I can still send these 20-year lights in, and they'll get fixed, and they'll get repaired, and they'll get repaired for easier and cheaper and simpler than if I were to buy new lights.
Now, while you're talking, Michael, you have not actually Godox lights.
Yes, mine. They are technically Godox lights because they were all manufactured the same way. They're using the same proprietary radio computer in them, but they are the rebranded version from a brand in Calgary named Strobe Pro.
So why did you do that?
Price tag. Honestly, so it was partially availability as well. The deals that I get from Strobe Pro are really phenomenal, but it's also I was really only seeing the majority of Godox products being sold by VizTech, and they couldn't actually decide. There was some issues with importing and their conversations with Godox that they had it up on their site one day and the next day it wasn't, and the next day it was, next day it wasn't, and there's just something going on there that I couldn't rely on actually getting real Godox products from them. So my trigger that I bought and my first light, the smaller, little bit bigger than a speed light, smaller than a strobe, is called the AD360. Those are the actual Godox products. And then I've got 2 studio strobes from Strobe Pro, but they all talk to each other. There's absolutely nothing different about them except for the brand label on it.
And you did your research online, you studied what the options were, you found out availability and all the things that you needed to know, and you made the right choice. So like Phil says, it's 2017. You know, we have choice. We have options to go and do research. So I do recommend everybody, if you're looking to build your own home studio, do your research. Think about what you're shooting. Think about the equipment you're going to need. Think about the space you're going to need. And then, of course, the props you're going to need. Because that's a whole different thing. So, Patrick, if you're doing a video, if you're making a video and you have an idea for what you want to do, you probably work out something like some sort of run sheet or what do you call it? Where you block everything out.
A storyboard? A storyboard?
That's it. Yeah. Storyboard. On your storyboards, are you putting props? Are you putting all the little things that you're going to need as well?
No, like I kind of like just figured that out like once I kind of pick it up and stuff, and like it kind of flows. So usually I just kind of write out my story, draw out the pictures, and then kind of like how like label what kind of shots I want with what kind of lens. And then when I get towards, you know, shooting that's when I start thinking, oh, maybe I should throw this in there, put another light over here or something like that, and then like try to figure that out. But usually I'm more on the go than I plan more than.
That's cool. One of the things that really surprised me.
Makes sense.
Yeah, makes sense. Sure. One of the things that really surprised me when we had the Loft Studio is the number of props that are needed for just any photo shoot. We did the Christmas photo shoots, family photo shoots for Sick Kids Hospital, and there's little babies that show up and families. And what do? Just have them sit there with a white backdrop? No, you got to give them like soothers, and you got to give them little dinosaurs, and you got to give them little toys and things that are telling a different story, and a lollipop or a funny hat. When my mother came for her photo shoot, she brought a whole bunch of those red noses, like clown noses. And, you know, we still have some of those at the studio. They're not huge, but Phil, you mentioned a huge case. What do you call that?
A trunk.
A trunk. Thank you. My vocabulary is just gone. So you have a big trunk, but in that trunk, Joe has glasses and frilly hats and masks and all these really cool props that you could use and different clothes and boas and whatever. So no matter who comes into the space, you have something that you can play with and have a good time with. And that takes space.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not cheap, but Joe's brilliant. You know, he'll go into some of those shops on Main Street that sell women's clothing or big hats or whatever. And he'll strike up a conversation and he'll be like, hey, we have a studio up here. Would you mind if we use some of your clothing as props? We'll give it back. We'll give you photos, blah, blah, blah. And they're usually fairly amicable, you know. And he walked in there one day to buy, I don't know, $20 worth of hats or something. He ended up spending the $20, but leaving with like $200 worth of stuff.
Nice.
They just loved him. Joe was just a great guy.
He'll bring it back one day.
No, that's for him. So, and then what about space for your models?
And that's the biggest thing, because once you have a room and you put in your lights and you put in your backdrop, which we can talk about in a second, you got to make sure there's enough room left for what you're shooting.
That's right. And not just what you're shooting, but where they get prepared.
Exactly. Well, that too.
Right? Like we have a whole bathroom area with beautiful lighting and a big mirror. And if you didn't have a space for a makeup artist to take the person and get them all done up, then you're doing that on set. You're doing that in the middle of everything else. And it can get confusing. So it's nice to have a separate little space as well where people can get ready, get prepared, separate from where you're shooting, because you can have two models getting prepared in one room while you're in another room actually doing your shooting. And if they're in the same room as you and you don't have a huge room to work in, then everybody's fumbling over everybody and you're just not getting anything done.
Well, then it's a distraction.
And
now,
absolutely.
If this is a home studio, you know, you may have a bathroom on your main floor. If your studio is going to be on your second floor, you probably have a bathroom close to it. So that kind of consideration, you know, just make sure that your situation, your house is clean, your bathrooms look nice, everything looks good, and you have a safe or quiet place for someone to go to change or get makeup done or whatever it is.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm gonna jump in on this one because as far as having products that you can use for the most versatile uses in the smallest spaces, I have to say absolutely a staple to add in with whatever lighting you're using is V-flats. Now, reflectors are one thing on their own that anyone using any sort of light should have a reflector. They're just fantastic to use, but V-flats take the cake because they are reflectors, they're backgrounds, they're floors, depending on how you're using them. And in my case, with my small space that I'm working in, sometimes they're changing rooms. And here's a picture of Megan, my beautiful girlfriend here, decided to model for me one day. And what bugs me in my shooting space is I've got this very light colored hardwood floor, and I like very low key photos. The color just doesn't work. So I took one of my V-flats and just laid it across the floor next to the other one and stood it up and gave myself a black sort of cove to shoot in.
So everybody can see what we're talking about. These are V-flats.
Yeah, these are big 4x-foot foam core panels that have taped together with black gaff tape. And then another set of panels that I just folded up to sit on the floor here. And these are really cheap to do, really cheap to make. I think they're maybe 30, 40 bucks to buy a panel. And I'm having trouble finding them, but I believe Henry's sells them as well.
Well, I hate to disappoint you, but I just bought every single one that they had. Yeah. It's funny. I didn't know what a V-flat was when we started the studio, and we ordered a couple in, and they're huge. I mean, 8 foot long, right? So how do you carry that home? So all of a sudden, we needed a few more. Ron needed some, so I ordered 2 in, and they only had 6 left. And I figured, well, how do you ship these and not get them damaged? Because they're very sensitive. So I figured, we'll take the other 4 and put them on the outside of Ron's and then ship us all of it, and I'll just take the other 4 to the studio. So Ben down at Church Store, the manager, he packed them up and bubble wrapped them and shipped them off to us, and I've got them at the studio now. So sorry about that, Michael.
I thought there'll be more at some point.
I hope they would have more, but it doesn't seem
there was some at the Toronto store I noticed as well.
When? How recently?
Months.
Yeah, so those are the ones I have.
Okay.
Anyway, I hope they'd be able to get them. It seems like it's a discontinued thing for us, but definitely V-flats are a huge asset. And please, Henry's, get more for all the people that are watching this and want V-flats. Either that or come to the Loft Studio and use ours. You know?
There is another company in Toronto that actually is more dedicated to really, really big movie sets. They're responsible for a lot of the films that get recorded in Toronto. And I think they're called William F. White down on Islington in South Etobicoke. Are actually where I ended up finding mine, because when I bought mine, I hadn't realized that Henry's even offered them. So if you can't find them at Henry's, you can find them somewhere in Toronto. I guarantee it.
And just look for V-flats online. I'm sure you'll find something.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about some big gear. The small gear adds up too. Triggers, gaffer tape, remotes, all kinds of pocket wizards and little trinkets, clips, little clamps on things. Like we have at the studio on one of our racks, must be a dozen and a half different clamps. I mean, you have a backdrop, you just want to clip it to something, clamp it. Or you have a V-flat or just a reflector or something that you want to use to scrim light. Navi was doing her portraits of the mental health awareness. And, you know, we were going for a very specific light where it was dark on the sides, light in the center with dark in the middle, just kind of very contrasty. And half the battle was getting these little reflectors to block light from hitting the faces of the people. And the way we did that was just clamp one reflector to the side of this and then clamp this reflector to the side of that. And you got to have clamps. And all of this stuff takes up space as well. Yep. Can you guys think of any little trinkets that we haven't talked about?
Well, we haven't really talked about backdrops, but that can be a whole other thing because you can get paper backdrops or cloth backdrops. There's how do you hold the backdrop? Do you have backdrop stands? Do you mount something to the wall? You can get fancy roller systems for paper backdrops so that you can basically put it up on the wall and then pull it down and then roll it back up when it's not in use. So there's a ton of different options. But other than that, I can't quite think of anything.
Well, Michael?
As far as backdrops go, I really want to sneak this one in here. I sort of cheated when I was making my studio for the sake of space. I'm not using a photography backdrop. I'm using IKEA blinds.
Ah, that works if you get large enough ones.
Something really functional in a tight space. This does have a drawback. One, it's super, super cheap, and you can get much larger sizes of them, and it's still cheap. But obviously, being window blinds, they don't go all the way to the floor, which is what really stands out for the issue that I was talking about earlier, where I can't really do full body portraits unless I'm putting my V-flats all the way to the ground, which I only just thought of doing recently. So these don't go all the way to the floor, but if you're doing anything up to sort of a 3/4 portrait, this is good. It works just the same as any backdrop would, and you can get it in different colors as well. I have black, gray, and white for these.
That's cool. And you know what? Since those are cordless, they're also very good for child safety.
Yes.
Yes.
Apparently.
They're right up out of the way when I'm not using them, which is brilliant.
And this is what Phil was talking about, where you have a backdrop that is on a roller system, and you just roll one color down and roll it back up again, or, you know, you can see how they go right down to the floor. So people stand on it. I think that's what Michael was talking about, how you may or may not be able to do that. But again, that comes down to what you're taking pictures of and how you're using it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So the last thing I want to get into as far as model portrait photography in a studio is the models themselves. Now, this could be an entire show on itself, but something to think about. If you are a portrait photographer and you're hiring models, well, you know, people are unreliable. And finding a good model, like we've all tried to do, is not an easy thing. I'm blessed with our studio. We have a small model registry with a few people that we can call on. I can think of one or two people specifically that they're always there when you need them. They're excellent to work with. They're just beautiful. And when you say you want them there, they're there. But then again, we did a portrait shoot, Navi New Masterclass, where 3 o'clock in the morning of our session, our female model bailed. 3 a.m., the morning of our Daytripper photo class. So we had two models, a male and a female. The female bailed. The male showed up. He was a wrestler friend of mine, Justin Springer. Guy's awesome, built like a tank, and he was awesome. It went really, really well, but then we had to get a second model and do a whole second shoot, and it was just a big mess. So finding a model that works well for you and is reliable, you know what, guys? Pay them well. They'll always work well for you, and make sure they stay like that by taking care of them and treating them with respect. Finding a good model is not easy, and when you do, make sure they're taken care of. That's my advice there. All right. Anything else you guys would like to add on the model or the studio front? Michael?
I can say two things for small accessories that are really, really good staples to have in a small space, in any sort of small space, even when you upgrade to a studio, is prioritizing compact solutions of whatever you're going to be using, collapsible solutions. Light stands are a great starting place because pretty much all light stands are telescoping. They can collapse really small, and you can buy them sort of according to the situation that you're in. Some of them you buy 6-7 foot light stands all the way up to 15 or 16 foot light stands. You're not going to use that at home. Don't bother with them yet. 7 foot light stands are cheap, and that's pretty much all you need for a while. If you're shooting at home, you're probably not going to need the big heavy duty C stands. So you can buy collapsible light stands that are really useful. I think Phil mentioned earlier, you can buy some that even are built into the wall that you can have wall mounted options. And you can get, in some cases and with some brands, collapsible modifiers. I think Westcott actually makes collapsible soft boxes, so you can have the big 32-inch soft box, and then it'll pack up the same way an umbrella does, and it's out of the way and really, really easy to set back up when you need it. All of my modifiers that I have are umbrella styled, taking each individual peg to put the soft boxes together. They just pop up in a few seconds. So setting down and taking up is really, really easy for me, and it makes working in a smaller space 1,000 times easier. And another thing, especially starting out with modifiers, umbrellas. Again, even more compact, really fast to set up and take down, and they just work for so many situations. Pretty much any home studio you see, any small business studio you see, everyone's getting umbrellas first. And I have to stand behind that one as well. And another thing that I want to point out is, especially in small spaces, these can be super, super useful, is scrims. I've done a little bit of product photography here and there in my studio. I decided to do one recently just for fun. And these were done, this photo here was done with some nice strip lights and a scrim that I actually made myself out of this sort of milky plastic tracing paper that I bought from Curry's. So you can really MacGyver pretty much anything to become a light source or light accessory. And this was done with just tracing paper, which is used to sort of soften and disperse the light a little bit more and get more of a gradient when you're doing product photos. And even as a reflector, I used a broken mirror from one of my old-fashioned shoots and just sort of composited in these reflections so I had really isolated areas. Use little things, even just broken mirrors work, or even big full mirrors work in portrait shoots. Use anything reflective. And one thing that I've made my mantra for any shoot on location or at home, which is actually advantageous to use in a small space, everything is your light source. If your light is too hard and you're in a small space, turn it around, bounce it off the wall. Buy a V-flat, stick the V-flat in the corner, shoot the white side of it, and now you've got an 8-foot tall light source. Everything is your light source. And when you're working in small spaces, you can really make use of that because you can aim the lights anywhere and just make it work for the purpose that you're using it.
Good advice. I see Andrew made a comment. He says he uses a roll-around tool cart for all of the small stuff like triggers, cables, gaffer tape, battery storage, etc. I have here just a kind of a, this isn't exactly the unit that I use at the studio, but we have a couple of these little carts that we keep that kind of stuff in. You know, we keep the triggers and gaffer tape and power cords and all that kind of stuff. Tiny little cart, you can just wheel it around, wheel it out of the way. It's definitely something, and there's all different sizes, you can see. You know, IKEA.
Yeah, and the advantage to that is everything's in the same place. You don't sit it on this shelf today and that shelf tomorrow. It's always in the top drawer.
Yeah.
Along with everything else that's in the top drawer, but it's always in the same place.
Yeah, and label your stuff. Get a little Brother P touch and make a label and say, you know, this is property of so-and-so. Because when you have people coming in and out of your studio, things can go missing very easily, and not a bad idea to do that. And something we do at our studio is we have a little Nest Cam. If we are not there and somebody else is using it and something gets stolen, we can go back and we can see who was in the space at that time and, you know, possibly see them take. We haven't had any issues, but it's good to be secure. It's good to have, and Nest Cams are cheap and you can get it and monitor it from anywhere. So all of that is important stuff. Okay, so I think we've covered everything we want to cover. Am I right, guys?
I think so.
Can we start getting into the fun stuff now?
I think so.
Cool. And not necessarily that this wasn't fun stuff. Yeah,
did I bore you?
No. But I'm just so excited about what we have coming up.
Well, I think we should cover the hot topics first.
Okay, hot topics.
Mainly because I'm seeing this queue here, and I have absolutely no idea what this is about, and I would like to know more about it.
Oh, okay. Who put this in? Did I put this in? I might have put this in. Actually, I put this in because this was weeks old now. Because this show was supposed to happen weeks ago.
Okay.
Yeah, Jared Polin, Fro Knows Photo. He went off on a guy who entered his own photo competitions and won.
Did we not talk about that yet?
I think we did. I thought we had talked about that.
I think
it might have been one of the shows that I wasn't here.
Maybe that was it. But anyway, it's worth talking about quickly. Yeah, don't enter your own photo competitions. It's like us saying, hey guys, we run the Daytripper Photo community. Let's partake in our photo challenges. And no, wait, we won.
Yes. Speaking of photo challenges.
Yeah, speaking of photo challenges, thank you. Good segue. Remember, guys, we have 2 current photo challenges ongoing every month. The current month, our fundamentals challenge is vignette, and our creatives challenge is sound. There's people posting for vignette. I see that already. That's awesome. You still have a little bit of time to post these. Let me just get out my calendar so I can remember those times. Calendar, right? Everything is about the calendar. So
I can still enter, right?
What's that? What'd you say?
I can still enter that challenge, right?
No, you're a host now, so
Okay.
I don't know.
I was disqualified when I entered.
That's true. That's
I
true.
think that's how we're playing the game.
Okay, so today is the 17th of May. The photo challenge is ongoing until the 27th of May. That's the Saturday. And then we will we'll do our video, recorded video on our photo review, and we will post that on the 30th, the Tuesday. So you guys have until the 27th to do these. And again, those challenges are vignette and sound. So I encourage you guys to make new photos for this. Don't find old photos that you've shot already, because the whole point of us giving photo challenges is to get you guys shooting more, just to have more fun and make new photos. All right, there are a couple upcoming sessions I should probably mention. We have the Joseph Leduc Liquid Art session coming up on June 25th. We have the Don Komarechka Macro session. And by the way, these are all up on the website now. Don Komarechka Macro session at the Loft Studio. This is the first time we have Don at the Loft Studio doing a class. Super stoked about that. That's July the 16th. July. I don't know. Why did I say July? Anyway. And Birds of Prey on July 23rd. So that's the first Birds of Prey session of 2017. I can't wait for it because they're always awesome. Phil will be there, I know for a fact. I think for a fact.
Yes.
Yes, I know for a fact. Cool. And before we get to the fun, amazing news that we have, we're going to do a quote of the day. And I believe, Phil, you would like to read this.
Yes. We're talking all about making decisions and everything like that. So I thought today we could do this quote here. And this quote is, in any moment of decision, the best thing you can do is the right thing. The next best thing you can do is the wrong thing. And the worst thing you can do is nothing. And that's by Teddy Roosevelt.
Oh,
I have a couple of his quotes I've done over the last little bit.
Well, you know, he's a fairly respectable president. When there were
gentlemen as is.
You know, there actually used to be respectable presidents.
I say the bar's set pretty low there.
Oh my God. I'm just. Anyway, guys, let's get to it. Let's get to it. I'm so excited. Okay, so. Okay, so we put out a question for our community. We said, "Hey guys, how do we make this show better? How do we make it more watchable? How do we get viewers to actually pay attention to what we're doing?" Because we put a lot of effort into this. And, you know, the definition of insanity is to do the same thing over and over and over again, expecting different results. Well, for the past 4 years, 4.13 years, was it, Phil?
Yeah, 4.13.
4.13 years, we've been doing kind of the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. So I take it that we're all insane. That's kind of what I'm thinking. So let's not be insane. Let's try something different. We got great feedback, and thank you, everybody, for giving us your feedback and being honest. We needed honesty. I don't want to hear, "Oh, we love your show. Oh, so good." No, we don't want to hear that. Give away beer? Who said that?
Carrie Riddell.
Oh, we'll talk about that, Carrie. That's actually in our new platform. That might actually never mind. So, so here's the deal. Here's the deal. I'm going to just say it. This is the final Daytripper Photo Show.
Dun, dun, dun.
The final. This is the last one. We cap at 215 shows. So there you go. There's the news. Bye, everybody. No, that's not it. That's not it. So we're canceling the Daytripper Photo Show. And the reason for that is because it's the same thing. You know, we've done it for so long, and you know, it's not gaining any traction. And I appreciate that you guys, some of you guys, really like it, and I've been hearing some comments that are very positive, and I appreciate that. But we got to start fresh. We got to do something different. So here's what we're doing. The Daytripper Photo Show, since day one, has been going on through my own personal YouTube page. Bryan Weiss, Mr. Snaps. It's been doing that since day one. So I've got all these shows, along with all my time-lapse videos, along with all my wrestling videos, along with all my other stuff. We're canceling that. That's still going to be there. I'm still going to do my stuff. But from now forward, we're going to be doing it through the Daytripper Photo YouTube channel. That's right. I said it. It's a channel. We have a whole channel of shows planned, guys. Up to 9 separate shows. So we're going from 1 show to 9. It's kind of stupid. But here's what we're doing. The first show is going to be called The Frame. The Frame is actually an interesting concept where we invite photographers that we love and talk about a photo that really taught them something special, whether it was something about their composition, whether it's something about their lighting, a personal experience, whatever. It's going to be a short show, maybe a half an hour long. We're going to talk about one image with amazing photographers, and we're going to get into the nitty-gritty about why they made it, how they made it, and what they learned from doing it. It's not going to be live. In fact, the only live shows that we're going to do are something we're going to talk about in a minute, but all these shows are now going to be pre-recorded and posted at a very specific time and edited and looking professional. Mm-hmm. That's the intent, right, Patrick? I single Patrick out because Patrick is our video guy. So he's going to be in the forefront of our video production. So I'm super excited that Patrick is on board and excited about it. Is that the right word to use?
Yes, I'm so excited.
So cool. Okay, so that's the first thing. The Frame is what it's going to be called, and I can't wait for that. We're going to be inviting some of the most incredible photographers that are out there. I'm just going to say it right now. In case you're watching, Don, you're invited. Pete McKinnon, a lot of really great people. Of course, we're going to invite our good friend Navi Noom, but we're going to reach out to other people, like maybe Ben Von Wong, right? Maybe Joe McNally. Who knows? Maybe they'll say yes. So I'm throwing out some big names, and of course, we're going to see what we can do. I'm also going to approach Henry's Cameras, and I'm going to ask some Henry's employees to come on as special guests. We're going to do a whole section if all works out, and we're going to get that. So that's the first show, going to be called The Frame. The second show we're going to have is called Tech Trends, where we're going to be doing, just, again, a short show on all of the new trends that are coming out in the world of photography, all the technical side, all the fun things, and we're going to get we're going to have a lot of fun doing that. So we'll do that. We'll do my DigiKnows are coming back, so we're going to get to see some very quick tips on, things that we should know, but maybe we don't think about. Very 10-minute little tutorials. We're going to do some unboxing videos. Going to talk about some new products. We are blessed. Patrick, Phil, and myself all work at Henry's Cameras, so we see some pretty cool stuff come in, and we're going to be able to do some unboxing videos and some really cool stuff. Michael, sorry, dude. you can call in. You can be on the video chat or something. We're going to have our shenanigans shows. So if we go out and we're doing an I Shoot for Me day and something fun happens, we're going to have a little shenanigans video come up. And of course, we're going to have our photo reviews as always, because we want to keep people in the community making new photos. So the photo review show is going to stay the same. Once a month, we're going to have 2 challenges, and we're going to review the top 2 from each category. We're going to get into some live Q&As. Now, this is something that we're going to do hypothetically if we get popular. You never know. And that could be a lot of fun. We're going to do some Facebook Live and Instagram shows and some behind-the-scenes stuff. So all of these things are going to be set up in separate playlists on the new YouTube channel as soon as we get the content all prepared and so on. So for now, we're taking a 2-month break. During that 2 months, we're going to be building our content, and then we're going to have a big reveal when we have all our content and our YouTube channels all up and everything. So by all means, if you want to find Daytripper Photo YouTube channel and subscribe to it now, you're welcome to. There's nothing there. But as soon as it's all up there, we're going to tell the world, and we're going to have a great time doing it. So Bill, Michael, thank you guys for jumping on board and being involved in this. It's going to be a fun little adventure that we're going to take together, and hopefully everybody will love it. So can't wait to hear what people think about our new ideas. I still go back to the chat here, and all I see is Carrie saying give away beer. So who knows? Maybe we'll give away beer. You never know, right? So Andrew, yeah, big changes. So there's a 2-month break now, guys. We're going to be building our content. Teresa, excellent. She says that sounds great. Thank you. Time will tell. We're going to do our best, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And I know we probably shouldn't have revealed everything, but you know me.
It'll come something similar.
Yeah. Oh, so anything else to add before we say goodnight tonight, guys?
I think that's about it.
That's about
And
it.
thank you, Ivan, for the best of luck. We will maybe need it.
This is an adventure for us. We're learning every time we do some of this stuff. So it'll be a learning experience for us. And of course, there'll be lots of outtakes, I'm sure. Andrew says he's glad he was able to make it for the last DTP show. I am too. Garth is watching. Hey, that's pretty cool. He says he's looking forward to it too. So if all of you people who have said congratulations and you're going to watch, tune in, then at least we have like 5 followers. So that's fantastic. All right, guys, that's it for us tonight. Thank you all for watching on our final Daytripper Photo Show. I can't wait to see what happens when we start back up again. I hope you were all with us. And in the meantime, don't forget your photo challenges, vignette, and sound. And we're going to be doing our photo review at the end of the month. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We will see you all very soon. Take care and have a great night.
I can't do it without the crazy long pause.
I'm just not doing it. All right, bye.